We have participants joining in slowly. It's already time to start, so I think we'll begin now.
Yes. Like a Pavlovian response now, because every Wednesday we have been having this.
Yes. Thanks to you. Thanks to you.
Yes. Okay, so we'll begin. We'll begin now. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Rita Roy Chaudhary, Assistant Secretary General, FICCI. Welcome to the webinar on Catch the Rain. This is the fourth in the series of webinars that we have been doing on Catch the Rain by National Water Mission and Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Today's webinar is focused on the theme of Sahi Fasal, increasing water use efficiency in agriculture. The previous three webinars were focused on infrastructure preparedness for rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge and aquifer management, and the 3 R's of water conservation: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And today's one is the final one in this series, focusing on water use efficiency in agriculture. In the previous webinars, we heard a lot about how agriculture is the largest user of water, and particularly groundwater. And India is the largest groundwater user in agriculture globally. We also heard about the imperative for demand-side management in agriculture as far as the water use is concerned, and the fact that water pumps itself is a very large source of the high energy cost in agriculture. So, and we also were informed about the efforts being made by different states on water use efficiency through crop diversification and bringing in more crops which are less intensive in water use. So today's webinar is going to focus on this campaign of how water use efficiency in agriculture could be enhanced. Like in every webinar, FICCI has brought also corporate experiences and best practices around how corporates are looking at various measures towards water conservation. Today, we will add a very different dimension to this discussion. We have with us 2 leading companies in the space of solar water pumps, and the fact that water pumps is a very large component of the energy, high energy cost in agriculture. I think their insights will bring to light how solar water pumps is helping to bring down the water use in agriculture. So how solar water pumps and water use efficiency in agriculture are intrinsically linked. So with that, I think we will move forward with today's agenda. May I request Ms. Naina Lal Kidwai, Chairman of the FICCI Water Mission, past President FICCI and Chairman of India Sanitation Coalition, to make her welcome remarks. Ms. Kidwai, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rita, for that excellent overview of the sessions we have had thus far. And I'm delighted to see the traction that we have been getting on these important subjects. I also want to take the opportunity of thanking the ministry. Mr. Ashok Kumar has been a fixture through all of these with us. So thank you so much for having initiated this partnership and being part of these conversations. As all of you know, Mr. Ashok Kumar is Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission in the Department of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation in the Ministry of Jal Shakti. And I think just the fact that these different parts of water management in the country are coming together under one umbrella is so critical in terms of the way we tackle water going forward. I have to say that when I had started up the water mission, we had attempted to keep the conversation quite narrowly in the space of ensuring water efficiency, measurement of water efficiency, and water stewardship by corporates. And our whole idea was to raise the bar in terms of the way corporates dealt with water in the factory and in the area immediately around the factory. But as time has progressed, there's no doubt in my mind that we have to be able to tackle water at many levels, because while industry is not a large user of water, industry is highly dependent on the same water resources. And industry also has to be an owner of ensuring that the water that exists is kept clean, effluent management properly handled, and the tackling of agriculture and water therefore becomes squarely in the middle of this discussion, given that agriculture is the largest user by far, as you well know, in water in this country. So as the largest consumer of water, with net irrigated areas by groundwater being 63%, the conversation we had on groundwater clearly highlights why we need better efficiency in water use in agriculture, and the fact that irrespective of just the groundwater discussion, also water, irrigation, etc., going largely into agriculture also requires corporate intervention. And this intervention can happen at many levels. One is the innovations that we can bring in terms of efficiencies for agriculture and use of water. The other is, and an important one that we are tackling for the last few years in the water mission, is wastewater reuse. So wastewater reuse is actually an excellent example that explains the importance of integrated management of water, soil, and waste, which we define as the nexus approach. And reuse of this wastewater in different ways in terms of plant irrigation becomes a very important aspect of reuse of this wastewater. In fact, FICCI released a compendium of good practices for sustainable water management of water in agriculture this year. And the purpose of these compendiums is to capture the examples of best practice, document them, and disseminate this so that we can have more companies, more players look to these examples to replicate them and to scale up. And this particular book I would like to point you all to is important because it demonstrates the exemplary work in water use management in agriculture for this purpose of wider propagation and replication by various stakeholders. So do look out for this publication. Now, the fact that agriculture and the industrial sector are linked is really quite important for us as India builds its agriculture going forward, and indeed food processing going forward, because one derives from the other. And the important point that Rita raised in terms of the interconnections of energy and water coming through, whether it is more efficient solar pumps or indeed water being used for cooling of towers in the power sector. Power industries are known to shut down in the summer months for lack of water. These interlinkages are also very important for us to examine. And again, putting agriculture squarely in the middle of this becomes very key. As we build this understanding, and as corporates are beginning to take on the responsibility of water stewardship more and more seriously, both in terms of recognizing their own betterment in this cause, because at the end of the day, sharing this water with the community in a responsible way is the only way a corporate can use community water. Giving back to the community is equally key. And the corporates that are looking at some of the CSR initiatives in programs towards sustainable use of water in agriculture is growing. We don't have enough players in this space, but it is growing. And as we look at implementing these different technology innovations, and whether it is efficient drip or micro irrigation technologies, corporates can help with this dissemination. Let me end by welcoming Mr. Shiv Kumar, who I introduced earlier, and over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kidwai, for your welcome remarks. Now I'll request Mr. Mukund Vasudevan, co-chair of the FICCI Water Mission and MD of Ecolabs India, to make his opening statement. Over to you.
Hi, Rita, just confirming you can hear me. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Shri Ashok Kumar, Shri Sunil Kumar, Naina, Mr. Raghav Agarwal, and Mr. Patidar and Rita. Pleasure to be amongst this distinguished panel. I think, Naina, you said it perfectly. FICCI for the longest time had been focusing on talking about how corporates can help in water, and it was largely industrial focused. But of course, the biggest user of water tends to be agriculture. But it's not. This is not someone else's problem. It's equally industry's problem as it is the agricultural or the farmer's problem, as it is the government's problem. So it's everybody's problem. So a joint pooling of brains to kind of solve this problem is very critical, and that's why seminars like this, webinars, are very, very effective. I'd just like to share with you one of my experiences, and this is a personal experience, and this is many years ago in the United States, and I kind of saw that as a vision for India if we could ever get there. And I know we're making slow and steady progress towards it. This was in a place where they were growing grapes, and in a farm, many thousand acres of grapes were being grown there. And there was not a single person anywhere on site. And the entire farming was being done from a control room. And not only that, they had similar 10 farms, which were all being managed from that same control room. They had sensors in the soil, which was measuring the amount of moisture in the soil. They had sensors in the air, which was measuring moisture in the air. They had cameras at various angles to see what the quality of the grapes were, and to figure out whether they were getting any kind of infection. Not only that, based on all this data coming in, micronutrients were also being supplied along with the water in the form of drip or micro irrigation. I thought this was just phenomenal. It kind of said to me that how much productivity and effectiveness we could actually get if we were to get to a point where we could automate, use technology to make our farming more effective, create more yield per drop in a way. And I know for a fact that India today has, terms of water usage in agriculture, is probably not the most effective. It requires many angles to address it. It's not just technology. It requires awareness building. It requires changing of crop patterns or what crops you're growing. It requires the pricing to be right for water and energy. And then it requires technology and government support. So it's clearly a multi-stakeholder problem, which will get there. That said, I'm very optimistic. I think with support of some of the initiatives by everyone from NGOs to farmers to the government, India is now amongst the largest in terms of acreage, in terms of micro irrigation, drip irrigation and micro irrigation, largest in the world. We still have a long way to go, but we're getting there, right? I think similar to how the government or Modi ji has set up a goal for 75 gigawatts plus of solar, I think a similar goal for acres of land with drip or micro irrigation will be an ambitious but very effective goal to set up. And that will create a ripple effect of availability of water throughout the country for domestic, for agriculture, and for industry. So I won't say much more. I'll let the experts do the talking, but I think this is a great forum, and I'm really glad that we're spending time talking about something which is probably the most burning issue in the country today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasudevan, and thank you to both of you, chair and co-chair, for setting the context and the important role that industry, and not just industry, but different stakeholders should play in this direction. Now, may I invite Mr. G. Ashok Kumar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Water Resources, and the Mission Director of the National Water Mission, who's championing this whole Catch the Rain campaign, to make his keynote address and his presentation. Over to you, Mr. Kumar.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nana and Rita and all the participants in this. It's good to be back here this Wednesday also. So last 4 Wednesdays we have been here discussing water, and I am still not tired about discussing water. That's the best part of it. Today also we have about 120-30 participants, and just for the benefit of people who are new to this thing, I'll take 1 or 2 minutes on this water mission, because this new entity has come up on the screen in the scenario in the last 1 year only very prominently. So National Water Mission was set up in 2011 and to address various water management issues, and we had done a lot of work in the demand side and looking at the improved water efficiency and all. Some audits also in industry and agriculture is being done. We have recently started something called as a water talk, which is going on very well. Every 3rd Friday we do this water talk, which is now moved from the physical platform to a new platform, and about 39,000 people attended the last water talk. So I invite all the people for the next water talk on 21st of August. If you are not heard it, you should please join that, because it's a very interesting topics we discuss. We discuss not only industrial people, we bring in activists and from the field. We bring in theoreticians, we bring in bureaucrats, we bring in engineers, and a lot of things. People come. So it's a smorgasbord of different ideas we get in that water talk. So having said that, I hope that the next water talk, there will be a lot of participation from the FICCI's associated people, because we have a target of reaching 1 lakh participants. The Secretary has put up a challenge of reaching 1 lakh people during this. So it is being streamed in Facebook and other things also. Okay. Now, coming to agriculture and Indian water usage. One more point before that, we have actually started this campaign called Catch the Rain, which is actually the initiator of this series of pep talk. The Catch the Rain campaign is actually looking at the supply side of the water. We want the water, rainwater, which falls in the country 3 or 4 months, starting from June when the monsoon starts. We want that water to be saved and conserved for the rest of the period of the year. Our storage efficiency is very poor, about 8% only. So we have to improve that. And we use a lot of groundwater which is not depleted. So we are actually looking at a very unsustainable agriculture, and which may be a problem. That's why we have this Catch the Rain campaign. And I request all of you to participate in the campaign by spreading the message, or as well also trying to pick up the rainwater harvesting structures in your compound and also in your residential societies and in your zone of influence. Coming back to the agriculture and in water usage, see, as the speakers initially spoke before me said that India, the water usage in agriculture sector accounts for about 89%, which is very large compared to many other countries. Anyway, water is very essential for agriculture. We can't deny agriculture to water. America probably have much less usage of water in agriculture, because a lot of water goes to the industry sector. So having burned the finger during at the time of independence of not having food and regular famines and all, we rightfully went on to the thrust on agriculture, and agriculture revolution brought in sufficient food. From moving around with begging bowls for PL 48 shipments to come from USA, now we have sufficient food with us. In fact, we have surplus of food with us to stock with us, feeding a lot of rodents in and around the FCI godown. because of the poor offtake. Do we have sufficient, more and more, almost 3 times the stock required for food sufficiency? So we have done great in the agriculture sector. But there's some cost attached to it. We'll come to that later. So we have India. Let us check up whether India really need to look at increasing the water efficiency. India gets sufficient rainfall, as I said, but there is a temporal and spatial variation. Some parts of the country are always in drought, and some part of the country have excess flood. Today, also, so many of the places we have a lot of water and water logging in many of the areas. So there is a spatial variation of water availability in different parts of the country, as well as there's a time variation, because a couple of months only we get good rainfall, and then we have to store that water for the next month. So there is, and agriculture uses 89% of water, and the industry and the domestic usage comes out to 11%. So if we save water in agriculture sector, we can provide a lot of water for the other sectors. So basically, we cannot create water. So water saved is the water created. If we can save water in agriculture, that can be utilized for industry and for domestic purpose. Some of the places there are shortage of drinking water. And next, over the years, it will actually improve. The demand of water will definitely increase because of the increased population, increased requirement of feeding them, and increased industrialization, increased urbanization. Our water demand is going to go up. So even though statistically speaking, we have a gap of water availability and the water demand, this will definitely go up, and by 2050, we probably, as per the statistics, will be water deficient. But then before we reach there, we have to do something to save the water and also reduce the water usage or improve the water efficiency there. That is the need of it. Now, what is there a scope for increasing the water usage efficiency? Tremendous. We have our water usage efficiency in India, in agriculture and industry all put together is only 38%, whereas industry, other developed countries have attained about 65-70% efficiency. There is a different scope. So even with the we don't increase the availability of rainfall. If the rainfall is not in our hands, even if the issues of climate change and all these things are there, even if the water we get, the rain we get today, if we save or increase the efficiency, there is a definitely scope for saving a lot of water. And as I said, some of the areas India is facing water crisis because of proper water management. So it is not the issue of less availability of water; it is the improper water management which is creating problem for India. So we need to really focus on this water management and increase the biggest user of water, that is the agriculture. So that's where there's scope for increasing the water efficiency in agriculture. Irrigation in India, agriculture in India is a lot of rainfall is there. We have still not reached the full potential of irrigated sector, and many nearly 6,000 dams have been constructed, and thousands of minor tanks and check dams have been constructed to store the water and use it for mainly irrigation. But we have created many dams, but then we have not reached the potential created, because we assess some sort of utilization of water from the dams, but we have much behind the utilization of the command area. So many of the projects were constructed and used, and still the distributors have not been developed. Second part is that those dams which have been built over the years because of improper silt management, all this, you have getting silted up and the volume has come down. So there are a lot of issues associated with the surface water. Even though at the time of independence, we were one of the largest in the world in terms of surface dams, and irrigation was at that time was predominantly surface water irrigation. We had constructed dams like Bagra, Nangal and all, which the Prime Minister then said that it's the modern temples of India. We have moved far from there to predominantly a groundwater-based agriculture economy, where nearly 60% of the agriculture now happens in groundwater, but basically because of the convenience to farmers, because farmers can get water as and when it required. All they know to switch on the electricity and the it will pump water from the underground and use it as and as long as they wish, because nobody is charging them for the power they use for agriculture and nobody is charging for the water they use. So it's basically a free bonanza to keep on pumping water. And there are, I know cases where the borewell is directly connected to the power line and kept. And whenever the power comes, the motor starts pumping the water, and the water keeps on flooding the field. And since most of the crops they go for paddy, and paddy doesn't mind having water logging a bit, water keeps on pumping, and the water is exploited without any rhyme or reason, and no questioning of that. So that's the type of irrigation which we have now. We have about 433 billion cubic meter available in the groundwater, and we use about 10% of that. That's the figure of this. We have more than 25 million the groundwater bores, which pumps water to about 230 to 250 billion cubic meter of water to irrigate about 65 to 70 million hectares. So there is a shortfall of the potential created for surface irrigation, and there's a lot of gap between the potential and the actual usage. That's one part of it. And we have this surface water, the groundwater bores lifting up water from the ground aquifers and use it for irrigation, which in turn also brings in a lot of strategic issues. One is that that actually is pumping of water by groundwater from the groundwater by motors is actually a threat to the energy security. Nearly 25% of the power is actually used for pumping this water. And also we have I'll tell you the figure, nearly 120 to 150 thousand gigawatt hour is the power utilized, and 5 to 8 billion liters of diesel is used for pumping. So see, our fuel bill is a diesel, and that fuel bill is a very, very important spending of the foreign exchange reserves. We bring more and more, we spend more and more money for bringing in petroleum products, and then that diesel, not a large quantity, as I said, 55 to 8 billion liters of diesel is used for pumping up the water. So there is a lot of scope for improvement, and there is a need for reducing that as far as the strategic importance is concerned, as far as also water point is concerned. Now, coming to efficiency. So, agriculture, how can we increase the agriculture efficiency in agriculture sector? There are maybe, in my opinion, there are three important ways to look at it. One is the changing the cropping pattern, looking at the cropping, the crops which use highly water intensive crops, or they demand high crops, high water requirement crops should be avoided. Paddy, sugarcane, and wheat are one of the, and cotton. These are one of the crops, some of the crops which require a lot of water. And unfortunately, more than 60 to 70% of the crop area, irrigated area in the country are taken up by these crops because of the various policies associated. So change of cropping pattern is one important way of looking at the improving the water use efficiency. And there are many policies to be tweaked for that. The MSP is one reason which forces people to go for a particular crop. There are lack of agricultural extensions and marketing opportunities available for the alternative crops. There's another issue. The agricultural extension people are still stuck with their old system, and they have their own update their technology, and that is one reason why people continue to grow the old crops, and continue to draw more and more water from ground, and the water use efficiency suffers. The second one is better irrigation practices. There are, even if the farmers continue with the paddy and all these things because of their love for paddy, probably we can nudge them to go for better irrigation practices. We still use the flood irrigation technology, which actually is the most inefficient way of irrigation. It is only 30 to 35% utilization of water comes in flood irrigation, whereas other sprinkler and drip actually increases the water efficiency much better. So there is a better water agriculture practices can be taken up, direct sowing can be taken up, laser leveling can be taken up, then your ziri agriculture practices are there, and alternate wetting and drying practices. So these are all same better water practices in the same for the same crop. So even if you are not able to push the farmers from getting away from the water intensive crop, we can ask them to go for better water practices. And very important is our this technology is another important part of it. Now, before coming to technology, let us look at what are the issues associated with the technology and the efficiencies compared to as far as groundwater and surface water are concerned. In surface water, we found that it is probably one of the very inefficient but most sustainable way of irrigation, because even if you irrigate the field, next year rain comes and fills up the dam. So we get sustainable water every year. We get the water is replenished by God's grace. But then it's very inefficient because there's a lot of water evaporation happens in this big storage space. The efficient storage inefficiency is there. The conveyance inefficiency is there. We take the leakages in the dams is one issue. Then we take the water through canals. There's a lot of leakages in the canals. Linings are not properly done. Poor maintenance. Unfortunately, once the groundwater has taken precedence over the surface water, people are not paying the money for maintaining the irrigation facilities. So that results in poor maintenance of the irrigation structures, which increases the inefficiency of water distribution. So that is conveyance inefficiency there. And the on-farm inefficiency, very bad. From one farm to another farm, we don't have branch canals, we don't have proper gates to open. Even if water is not required, sometimes water goes into the field. And probably that's why one of the reasons why they go for paddy, because paddy doesn't mind waterlogging. Even if the water flows in, paddy survives it. So people also are happy with that. So it's a chalta hai which goes on. So these are, whereas in the groundwater, our problem is, as far as efficiency is concerned, our pumping machines are very bad, not very efficient. We are very inefficient pumping systems are there. I know there is a panelist who would actually tell what are the new things which have been done in the pumping of the water. We have inefficient energy supply system. Even the electric lines, except in Gujarat, all these are all mixed feeders. So the voltages of the electricity are not very good. So there is inefficiency because of the poor power supply. There is now we are also trying to push to capacitance and all the capacitors to be added to increase the efficiency. That part of it. So there is a lot of inefficiency as far as pumping of the water is concerned by using inefficient motors. Is there? The point which I said, third point which I said of increasing the water use efficiency in agriculture is technology. Micro irrigation is one. Even though, as Mr. said, we have very large area of micro irrigation, but we are very poor in the total percentage of the water micro irrigation done. Against a total potential of 69 million hectares, we have done only 12 million hectares. So it's just a tremendous scope for increasing the micro irrigation, drip and sprinkler irrigation. There are issues associated with that because it adds to the cost for agriculture. The poor maintenance of the valves and all is a problem. So we are not able to educate the farmers to go for this micro irrigation. And the cost involved is also very high. So we have to look at what cost reduction can be done for this micro irrigation part of it. New technologies have come in Israel. If you look at it, the rainfall is much less than what we have, but they have very high technology in agriculture. They use precision agriculture. They use artificial intelligence to measure the water availability at the root zone, and as per the requirement of the water of the plant at various stages, whether it is fruiting stage, flowering stage, or when it's just a normal growing stage, depending upon the stage of the crop, depending upon the requirement of the need of the plant, water is given drop by drop, so that not a single drop goes. All 100% water utilization happens. And in India, a lot of water is taken up by the weeds also. The weeds take up flood irrigation, more water, more weeds come up, and we have to spend more money for removing the weeds also. In Israel, there's no water available for weeds, so there's no weed also. That is also a saving for them. We have they also cover the crops when the sun is very high or hot, so that the water transpiration is said. There are very cost effective interventions possible in technology. So not all technology is not very highly cost intensive, like artificial intelligence and drones to put the water there, but there are very efficient technologies available for this thing. Other important way is like of using the water substitution. I think I'll one more. I think minutes now. It's about 20 minutes. Okay. My other way of increasing the water efficiency is using treated wastewater for the irrigation, so that your overall offtake of water is reduced. The what is consumed by people, 80% comes back as sewage. If that can be treated for water, that much water intake can be avoided. That means the substitution of water is available, is possible. And if the water from a barrage, if you look at the Ganga basin and all, a lot of water is carried away from the river for irrigation. If the drinking water is treated and given back to the field at good quality, not pure high quality is not required, that the bathing stage quality water is available to the farmers, probably they will use that water, and the amount of water which we are otherwise drawing from the river can be saved. There's an alternative use of the water and substitution. But for all these things, 3 or 4 points are there. I'll wind up in another 2 minutes. This is the metering part. We have to know, if you would do all these things, we should know how much water is actually used. We don't have the idea of exactly how much water is utilized, because it is flood irrigation. It's Bhagavan ke dene, Kudarat ke dene, so it keeps on utilizing the water without any pumps. So we need metering, we need auditing to be done. See, even if we are not pricing, pricing is the next stage. Actually, people should know the value of water and know that this much of water means this much of money actually is either given by the government or somebody. Even if you don't go for that, that may be a slightly far-fetched in the present scenario of the political situation. It may be difficult for people to price the agriculture water. At least measure the water. You don't charge anything, but at least you tell them this much is water you are using, and that can be taken up should be taken up, so that metering on the water is to be done, water auditing has to be done, and then only we can look for improvement solution. So the final solution would be to make people aware of the value of water and make them feel that this water is required for their next generation. So if you use so much of water and your children will not have, even if they want to pay money and purchase water, they will not be able to get water, because water cannot be created. So the involvement of people and make them understand the value of water, and make people store water and use it very efficiently for the future generation and for the next generation would be the message which we should take it up. That's all I would say. And I'm sure that the panelists here today will definitely discuss on various issues of which can improve water usage efficiency. But that is the demand side. But again, I go back to my own first thing. I want to catch the rain. Next 3 months is only available for us to catch the rain. So kindly catch the rain before it goes. Our slogan is catch the rain where it falls, when it falls. I should now add one more line, before it goes away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok Kumar. Thank you for your address and the details of this mission and the need for water use efficiency in agriculture. Most importantly, your point on the close link with energy security and how we could save our precious foreign exchange. So now we will move to the experts who are on the panel today. I'll request Mr. S. Vishwanath, founder of Biome Environment Trust. Mr. Vishwanath also was here for our first webinar on rainwater harvesting and shared experience of Bangalore and Karnataka specifically. And over to you, Mr. Vishwanath, to share your thoughts on water use efficiency in agriculture.
Thank you. Can I share my screen, please?
Sure, please go ahead.
It's visible and I'm clear. Just wanted to get a feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Visible.
Okay. Thank you. So this is going to be a very brief intervention from my side. I wait for the other experts who've been devoting much of their energy in the sector to be talking, and I'll just be more than happy to listen to them and learn from them. But I will just focus on two critical innovations with precision in irrigation. Also with the theme which Mr. Ashok Kumar so eloquently put of catch the rain. So here's a polyhouse. It's catching the rain from the roof of the polyhouse. This is in the JKVK University of Agricultural Sciences. And you see that there's a rainwater gutter, and you see a platform and 3 storage tanks, about 10,000 liters each. So here's rainwater harvesting and drip irrigation occurring simultaneously for a polyhouse using no external source of water and no external source of energy. The two critical components that were mentioned with borewell irrigation, that they not only use a lot of water, but they require a lot of energy to work. So can we start to make systems which at least reduce the dependence on groundwater and reduce the dependence on energy? So this is one example. Depending on the rainfall pattern at the particular site and the evapotranspiration that occurs there, it's my estimate, and it's the estimate of the student who worked on the project, that even if there's 400 millimeters of rain, and if we are able to harvest that, we should be able to grow a 6-month crop with gravity-based drip irrigation systems inside the polyhouse. Now, of course, it depends on the weather conditions there. These are the kind of innovations that we need to push with catch the rain and with precision engineering. So the systems are easy. The polyhouse design is there, and there's a collection system using a PVC gutter. Then you directly store it in the rain barrel there, and then you measure it, and then you open up the gravity-based drip irrigation system. The gravity-based drip irrigation system can not only irrigate the polyhouse within, but a certain portion outside too, because the catchment is pretty robust in terms of collection efficiency. You can collect about 95% efficiency. You can irrigate inside and you can irrigate outside through drip irrigation systems. I'm sure that this will be taken up, or has already been taken up by many innovative farmers, and there's something that we can put a focus on and an attention on: catch the rain and use drip irrigation, save energy. The second system with the polyhouse-based catch the rain is to make ponds like this, lined ponds. And this is again quite common now with polyhouses. You make sure that every drop of rainwater on the polyhouse is sloped in the direction of the pond, and then it's a lined HDPE lined pond. Then you use a sand filter to make sure that the water is clean and clear and removed out algae before it's sent into the polyhouse. And of course, you can use nets on top to prevent evaporation losses and prevent leaves and organic material falling into the pond, into that rainwater collection pond there, right? And of course, the modern irrigation systems can also start to play themselves with both rainwater and with wastewater. This is Netafim from Israel. Jain Irrigation also makes these, and a lot of companies are making drip irrigation systems with filtration systems. What I'm trying to show you here, this tomato is growing with plastic mulching, saplings are growing, and the drip irrigation system is working. All of these are working with treated wastewater. From the city of Bangalore, about 400 million liters per day of treated wastewater is being pumped into the drought-prone district of Kolar. You can see the figures on the top left. That's treated wastewater, treated and chlorinated wastewater, which enters into these lakes. In the center, you see the lake. And these lakes and tanks then are allowed to recharge this treated wastewater into the shallow aquifer. No farmer is allowed to pick up the water directly from these tanks. And from the shallow aquifer, the open wells are the ones which are getting recharged. And what one observes that farmers are using drip irrigation systems from open wells to irrigate their crops. And the crops are a variety: cucumber, tomato, many other crops are being grown here. Again, because the shallow aquifer is being recharged and water is being pumped from a depth of 4 feet to 5 feet, the irrigation, the energy requirement becomes much less. And with a small well like the one you see on the top right, a farmer is able to irrigate 6 hectares of land, thanks to the tank being always full with treated wastewater and the percolation and the irrigation that's recharge that's occurring there. And so you see more systems of shallow aquifers getting full. Somewhere along the line, as we conceptualize the use of groundwater, we'll have to see how we can move from the deep aquifers, which sometimes go to 1,800 feet, and travel up all the way back to the shallow unconfined aquifer, come back to the open aquifers, and how we can incentivize farmers here not to drill bore wells, but to depend on shallow open wells, because they're guaranteed recharge from the lake. And if we make sure that the lake is always full, like with treated wastewater, we're always assured about the water availability in the shallow aquifer. How do we push them into the shallow aquifer, and then drip irrigation would be the next set of challenges which the government of Karnataka will face and the minor irrigation department will face, right? And then you see that these are all treated wastewater irrigation using drip. This has another advantage in the sense treated wastewater has 2 sets of risks if we are using it for crop production. One set is for the consumers. We have to make sure that the water quality is good enough so that it does not harm the crop production. The second is for the farm workers who work on the land. If it is flood irrigation, if it is that farm workers are in contact with it, there may be a harm potential. But if it's drip irrigation, then the farm workers themselves are protected to a large extent from the direct contact with wastewater, treated wastewater. There's another example now, which is happening in the periphery of cities. Innovative farmers are tying up with these kind of apartments who are not connected to the main system of sewage. They have their own septic tanks and small treatment systems. Farmers enter into an arrangement with these kind of buildings and pick up the treated wastewater from the septic tank, pump it even up to 1 kilometer, fill up their percolation pond in their tank, as you can see in the center, and then use drip irrigation systems to grow marigold, right? Now, the advantage with marigold is that it's not an edible crop and therefore is not going to be consumed by people, and therefore it makes it risk-free for the consumers. The farmer gets a livelihood, the apartment gets its wastewater disposed of in a good fashion, and the farmer gets water which he otherwise is not able to access through deep groundwater, his borewell having gone dry. If you can work with the farmers and the system to make sure that the health risks are even more minimized by simple treatments on field, then it becomes a new source of water supply for farming and cultivation, right? So as wastewater generation will increase with urbanization, we'll have to start to work with farmers and with the health systems to make sure that it's risk-free and that farmers get to use it. And the final thought that I want to share is that farmers use drip irrigation not to save water more, but to save labor costs actually, because unfortunately water is not valorized enough unless it's very scarce. And improving soil biomass, organic carbon, and biodiversity of the soil is a much better way of conserving soil, in addition to drip irrigation and precision-based irrigation. Thank you, and I just wanted to share these 2 ideas with you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vishwanath. That's very interesting. And I think the important takeaway here is how to really work with the farmers on creating the incentives and their interest in using treated wastewater. But we'll come back to you later with some set of questions around this. Thank you very much. Now I'll move to 2 corporate speakers, as I mentioned in the beginning, around particularly the use of solar water pumps in agriculture. And our first speaker is Mr. Dinesh Patidar, who is the managing director of Shakti Pumps, a very leading company in the water pumps business. And he's also the chairman of the FICCI Madhya Pradesh State Council. So over to you, Mr. Patidar.
Thank you, Rita madam. Thank you very much. First of all, मैं ये बोलना चाहूँगा कि मैं सोलर इंडस्ट्री से भी हूँ और ड्रिप इरिगेशन इंडस्ट्री से भी हूँ, और एक बहुत अच्छी बात है कि फार्मर भी हूँ। तो अभी हम लोगों ने, जैसे अशोक कुमार जी ने हमको सारी चीजें, मैं जो बोलने वाला हूँ करीब करीब सारी चीजें अशोक कुमार जी ने बहुत अच्छे से हमको समझाई है। हमको एक चीज और समझने की जरूरत है कि ड्रिप इरिगेशन में हमारे फार्मर्स क्यों नहीं जा पा रहे हैं इंडिया में। तो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब का एक वीडियो है जिसमें वो 1.5 मिनट में ये सब बताने की कोशिश करते हैं, और आज से 4 साल पहले उन्होंने बोला है कि हमारे फार्मर ड्रिप इरिगेशन में इसलिए नहीं आ पाते हैं क्योंकि उनको पावर मिलने की गारंटी नहीं है। अगर पावर मिलने की गारंटी हो, जैसे फ्लड इरिगेशन फार्मर क्यों करता है, उसकी मजबूरी है कि फार्मर फ्लड इरिगेशन इसलिए करता है क्योंकि उसे पता नहीं है कि मुझे पावर कब मिलेगा, सुबह मिलेगा, रात में मिलेगा, कभी 6 घंटे मिलता है, कभी दिन में 2 घंटे मिलता है। तो उसकी जो क्राफ्ट खड़ी है उसके खेत में, तो उसको कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल नहीं है कि मेरे को पावर मिलेगा जिससे कि मैं बराबर मॉइस्चर मेजर करके ड्रिप इरिगेशन से या माइक्रो इरिगेशन से मेरी खेती कर पाऊंगा। तो इसके लिए सबसे जरूरी है इसके तह में जाना कि हमारे देश में ड्रिप इरिगेशन और माइक्रो इरिगेशन हमारे फार्मर यूज क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। उसका एक कारण यही है कि उसको पावर की गारंटी नहीं है। अब आते हैं हम सोलर पावर पे। तो अगर सोलर पावर हम दे पाए हैं हमारे फार्मर को, तो हम देश के लाखों लाखों करोड़ की जो आज डिस्कॉम का लॉस है उसको भी बचा पाएंगे, और सबसे बड़ी बात है हम पानी बचा पाएंगे। अभी ड्रिप इरिगेशन में जाने से 10% या 15% वाटर में ही उसकी पूरी फार्मिंग हो जाएगी, होती है, और फार्मर अपने आप ड्रिप इरिगेशन में चले जाएगा अगर हम उसको सोलर पंप प्रोवाइड करा दें। तो वो ड्रिप, क्योंकि उसके पास गारंटेड पावर होगा, गारंटेड पावर होने की वजह से उसको कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा, तो वो अपनी एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में माइक्रो इरिगेशन, वो ड्रिप इरिगेशन हो या स्प्रिंकलर हो या रेन गन हो, जो भी वाटर सेविंग के जितने भी अवेलेबल सिस्टम है वो अपने आप उसको अपना लेगा। दूसरी एक बड़ी बात यह है कि वो जैसे ही ड्रिप इरिगेशन या माइक्रो इरिगेशन अपनाएगा तो उसकी क्राफ्ट भी अच्छी होगी, उसकी क्राफ्ट की दाम भी उसको अच्छे मिलेंगे, और अपने आप हम आज वाटर जो सबसे ज्यादा कंजम्पशन हमारा वाटर का देश में है तो वो एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में। एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में वाटर बचाना है तो सबसे जरूरी है कि जैसा अभी हमारे अशोक कुमार जी ने बोला कि अनएफिशिएंट पंप इंडिया में करीब मेरे हिसाब से 5 करोड़ पंप चल रहे हैं किसानों के, जो बिजली भी खा रहे हैं और पानी भी, फ्लड इरिगेशन है इसलिए पानी का भी दुरुपयोग हो रहा है। तो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि हम लोग इस बारे में सोचें कि कैसे हम फार्मर को माइक्रो इरिगेशन की तरफ मोड़ सकें। उसका एक तो जो मुझे समझ में आता है वो तो ये है कि हम सोलर पंपिंग सिस्टम से उनको जोड़ें। दूसरा एक सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा जो है, हम लोग सस्टेनेबल जब तक नहीं बना पाएंगे सोलर का। अभी देश में क्या हो रहा है कि जो बातें हो रही है सब्सिडी की बहुत ज्यादा, लेकिन वो सस्टेनेबल सिस्टम वहां तक उन नंबरों के साथ नहीं पहुंच पा रहा है। अगर हमारे देश में फार्मरों का नंबर 5 करोड़ फार्मर्स की रिक्वायरमेंट है, तो वहाँ हम जैसे अभी हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब ने लास्ट ईयर ही घोषणा की कि वो 40 लाख पंप सोलर के लेके आ रहे हैं और कुसुम योजना एक लाए हैं। मुझे ऐसा लगता है आने वाले समय में हमारे पास एक कितना डायनामिक प्राइम मिनिस्टर हमको मिला है जिसको सब मालूम है, फार्मर्स की प्रॉब्लम्स मालूम है, वाटर कैसे बचेगा वो मालूम है, सोलर से कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड कैसे बचेगा वो मालूम है। तो अब उनके सपनों पे हमको चलना है, हम आगे चलेंगे। तो मेरा सिर्फ यही एक फोकस है इस समय। बहुत सारी चीजें अशोक कुमार जी ने बताई, बहुत सारी चीजें विश्वनाथ जी ने हमें बताई कि हम कैसे ट्रीटेड वाटर को यूज कर सकते हैं। यस, हम कर सकते हैं, फार्मिंग भी अच्छी कर सकते हैं। सबसे ज्यादा अगर आज की तारीख में हमको फोकस करने की जरूरत है तो हम फार्मर को अपने आप कैसे मोड़ पाए उस पर हमको ध्यान देने की जरूरत है। यही मैं इतना ही बोलना चाहूंगा। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Patidar ji, for highlighting the important nexus between water and energy, and the fact that if farmer is provided solar water pumps, it makes it much simpler for the farmer to move towards micro irrigation practices. Thank you, Mr. Patidar. Now we'll move to Mr. Raghav Agarwal from Rotomag Motor and Controls, another solar water pump company, to share their experience. Mr. Agarwal, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Good afternoon to all the distinguished panelists. And I can see there are 107 attendees at this moment. So good afternoon to every one of you. It's a real great opportunity to be speaking at this moment. And this is such a topic which actually has caught the attention of the United Nations FAO, agriculture organization. In fact, there is a full-fledged division which is working on energy, water, food nexus. And there, not only just the water part of it, in fact, how the energy efficiency can be brought into the water use efficiency, which is increasing basically the food production efficiency. So it's a very interesting thing. And this, with my personal experience, having been connected with the UNFAO for the last about 7 years, I can say that this is a very, very important subject, Rita, which I believe FICCI on its platform can actually get into much, much more detail, technologically supporting Indian industry, and in fact, bringing a collaboration between the Indian industry as well as certain farmer-produced organizations. It is these FPOs and the self-help groups who work into water use efficiency, particularly I have seen in Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh areas, are very effective in bringing out the higher water use efficiency applications. So I can see that most of the broad parameter, which is on the policy side, like rainwater harvesting, increasing the aquifer capacities in the rainfall, increasing the hectares of the irrigated land, water security, have been addressed by the distinguished panelists. So I will concentrate on basically the technology side of motor efficiency, and how can the measurement and the automated system, which Mukundan mentioned right in the beginning, through control rooms, soil moisture measurement, and even fertigation. These are the methods will actually result into higher crop per acre by the farmer. Basically, the water use per crop can be reduced, and the crop per hectare can increase. And with the same water, you can increase the farmer income by 3 to 4 times. So I will address, the first thing is in the motor is called the motor efficiency. Now, most of these, as you can see, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has brought in 3-star, 4-star, and now 5-star rated appliances. Similarly, in the motor industry, the latest specification is IE4. And I'm glad that EESL started promoting and propagating such motors into industrial applications last year, 2019. Though, and these IE4 motors have an efficiency of almost 92%. So the current motors, which are 42%, unrated, unstarred, if we can increase the motor use efficiency, we will bring down the use of energy. Now, energy, if you see, out of 400 megawatt installed capacity, about 110 megawatt goes only into the agriculture sector. And that too, it is rationed 8 hours per day per shift, and that too by rotation, day and night rotation. So this rotation and non-availability of energy actually makes farmer insecure. And it is this insecurity which leads to flood irrigation, besides, of course, the paddy, sugarcane, cotton, and wheat, which are in any case high demand water usage. So the technology and even the seeds, even the technology to grow these paddy crops requiring less water is actually being done by IARI. I'm aware of there's a technology called SRI, System of Rice Intensification, which has been developed by the University, Agriculture University, Tamil Nadu, where they are using the paddy, they are doing the paddy crop with the help of drip irrigation. So it is these technologies which have to be propagated jointly between the Energy Ministry, Power Ministry, as well as between the Agriculture Ministry. So IE4 is the motor which we feel we should make it mandatory into the agriculture sector, that all new pumps manufactured, AC pumps which are grid connected, must get into the IE4 category. The second is now coming to 5 major aspects which I have identified are required for water use efficiency, which will definitely result in a better crop per drop of water. So one is the customized design. It cannot suit all. So like, for example, in Rajasthan, groundnuts are being sowed in a very high acreage, particularly in Bikaner and nearby regions. Now the entire groundnut crop there is today using a sprinkler system, and it is very effective. We can take a case study and do the horizontal deployment in other regions for similar activities. Second aspect is accurate measurement, as Mr. Ashok Kumar did mention. Yes, I agree with you. So in solar water pumping system, sir, it is being made mandatory through a digital network and through a digital mode to measure every drop, every liter of water pumped by that solar pumping system over a period of 5 years. We as a manufacturer have guaranteed and warranted the government of India of providing such a system with a URL linkage to the government. At any point for each farmer, they can measure how much water has gone to the farmer. So this does three more things, sir. It helps us as a company to efficiently deploy our field service team, so that they go only those places where there is a complaint that the pump may not be working. Two, the government is able to monitor us whether or not we have serviced on time. And farmer can also switch on and off from his mobile through the remote monitoring when and whenever he does not want to use that water. So this measurement, sir, is a very, very big development at the grassroots level in the hands of farmer, which is effective for all the stakeholders here. The third point is harmonization of water and crop. So this is where the agriculture scientists and the agriculture extension scientists have to come together with manufacturers like us, and we can actually define that what is suitable for how much acreage for which crop in which region. And it will all depend upon whether it is a groundwater or the surface water. There is a difference in the harmonization. So this is a matrix, and a model can be built on that aspect. The fourth aspect, sir, is the manufacturer's reliable operation and maintenance. If you look at a refrigerator, now refrigerator has a brushless DC motor, high-end refrigerators, or high-end air conditioners like inverter AC today have the brushless DC motors. Now they are manufactured based on the magnets, and these magnets are also very high-end rare earth magnets, ferroneodymium. Now if these magnets never fail, when I say never, I mean 25, 30, even 50 years. So if such technologies are deployed into the product technology, then the operation and maintenance will become very effective, and we can head towards zero maintenance at the end of the farmers. So farmer is secure that his equipment works for 5 years, 10 years, or something like that. And lastly, sir, we have to discuss and make, as I mentioned, through the help of these self-help groups and these farmer produce organizations, how a particular deployment of technology can increase the productivity. If he is convinced of his productivity increase, sir, I have personal experience with almost 100,000 farmers in the country where we have installed solar water pumps, that each farmer has increased his productivity by not less than double. And some farmers have gone and increased their productivity and earnings by 3, 4, even 5 times. So it depends whether you are doing flood irrigation, whether you are doing sprinkler, whether you are doing drip irrigation, whether you are doing conventional like paddy, sugarcane, wheat, or you are doing fruits and vegetables. So this segmentation and harmonization is probably the need of the hour for increasing the water use efficiency. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. I think you highlighted some very key points in terms of the technology itself and the product, the solar water pump, how to bring greater efficiency, and the need for measurement, which is so critical from a farmer's point of view and also from the, the pump use point of view. So, I think those are very, very important points that have come on the table to look at product use more efficiently. We are now over with all our expert.
I have just Mr. Raghav Agarwal. One thing I want to add. See, they were this. I had read somewhere about the Spark project. That is the solar power as remunerative crop.
Yes.
They were planning it up, where the farmers are actually using the solar pump and connecting the output to the grid. They sell the power to the grid when they are not using it for pumping water.
Yes, sir.
What I've seen from the literature I read is that farmers are actually becoming sellers of power than actually using the power which they generate for irrigation. So in that way, I'll be very happy that they don't use much water.
Sir, very well said, sir. I'll give you 2 minutes, half a minute rather, just to give you in Andhra Pradesh, there is a one full grid of 200 pumps, which was installed in 2018. And there are 200 farmers in that grid. All of them are using only solar water pumps and uploading the power to the grid. Both myself and Mr. Dinesh Patidar are together. We designed, developed, maintained it. It is in Vizianagaram district, just about 1 hour drive from Vizag city, sir. This has been done by Andhra Pradesh government and APEP DCL. This is, sir, one of the finest projects which has happened in the country, sir. And we monitor each of these pumps through the remote monitoring system. So does the government monitors, actually, the Andhra government and the DISCOMs. In fact, not only this, in addition to that, there is already a tender by the Haryana government for 456 pumps on 2 grids to be completely done with solar power and excess power to be uploaded to the grid. Sir, we have the technology, we have implemented it, but it requires a broader participation of the DISCOM in this. In addition,
Bihar also has done something on that. Bihar government
has not yet gone in for it, sir. Not yet. For standalone solar pump, but not grid connected. In fact, sir, we have also done a similar work in the drinking water application. About 20,000 solar pumps are functional, supplied by Shakti and myself and some other companies in Odisha, Jharkhand, Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, where you do not connect the power to the grid and only the solar pump gives you 10,000 liters of drinking water every day in a particular installation. I mean, these are the game changers, sir, which has been possible with this technology provided through the solar water pumping.
Actually,
we have to do much more, sir.
I remember way back in 1997, where I was working as in a tribal area in Bhadrachalam in Andhra Pradesh.
Right.
We had used this solar drinking water to pump. It's about 12 volt or 20. I think it's 12 volt or 80 volt motor.
No, this is 96 volt motor now.
Something like that. So, but then it was signed way back in 1997. Today we are sitting in 20, and still how many people have come up? And why is it not coming up?
Sir, your ministry is fully aware of such documentation and the systems installed. In fact, your ministry is even giving huge subsidies for such system. Even the piped water supply project of the Ministry of Drinking Water is basically based on solar water pumping systems, sir. Because these pumps can give you more than 1 lakh liter, 2 lakh liter, if you want even 4 lakh liters water a day. The solar pump can give you that much of water. And the kind of pressure you can get is you can run even 10, 15, 20 sprinkler systems at any given point of time. It's a huge initiative, sir. And I believe this is a boon to the farmers. But we as ministerial colleagues and technology and interministerial departmental, I think we have to sit together to bring in certain spark into the whole system, sir.
What would be the cost and subsidy involved in this?
Sir, absolutely. If you look at it on a thumb rule basis, it is 50,000 rupees per kilowatt, or you can say per HP, average. And the general systems installation is 3 HP, 5 HP, 7.5 HP, and 10 HP. The Ministry of MNRE gives the subsidy only up to 7.5 HP. If you install 10 HP, you get subsidy only for 7.5 HP, and farmer contribution is 30% or maximum 40%. But some states like MP and Jharkhand, they have put the farmer contribution to 10%, 15%, or even less than that. So it's a state specific, but then the technology exists. We have to do better. We have to do more. Thank you, Rita, for the timing. If there's any more questions.
Yeah, I think we have a few questions that participants have sent us. One question is from Mr. Amit Kumar Mittal. He's saying that while there are plans and schemes for irrigation and technologies, how can these be, effectively delivered at the doorsteps of farmers rather than farmer having to approach them? So this is an open question to all. If Mr. Ashok Kumar would also like to take it up. How can the farmers effectively access the technology is the question. Yes.
This is one major problem I am facing in this sector, because we all work in silos here. See, I am looking at water, and being in water mission, I am trying to find out something for the agriculture sector. But then agriculture doesn't believe in listening to us. He said that, what is your problem? See, the problem is that I tell you, it is a issue of I say is that the dil mange bo. Every department tries to have more and more. See, agriculture department wants more production. You have 10 acres of 10 quintals of per acre. This time they want next year 12 quintal. Next year they want 13 quintal. Next year they want 15 quintal. See, for the people who sell more motor, they want more and more sales every year. This year 100 motors. Next year 150 motors. Everybody talks about more and more. So in this whole process, the water is used more. So we are the one who gets affected. Every institution works in silos. Every department works in silos, and they try to further their cause by having more and more productivity, more and more not productivity, more and more production rather. And in the whole process, the water gets thoroughly rogered, I would say. So that's where the issue is. This is a MNRE, that is the renewable energy are involved. The electricity department are involved, because grid and all, there are a lot of energy licenses issues are involved. Agriculture department is involved. Extension people are involved. The agriculture is handled by two divisions. One looks after the extension part, is a separate thing, and the technology and the agriculture practices are handled by someone else. Then you have water department here, and in water also, unfortunately, there's no single source of single point contact in state for water. You have urban water looking after separately. You have somebody looking after irrigation separately. You have somebody looking after groundwater separately. Somebody looking after agriculture separately. So basically, poor farmer, I think the farmer is the only convergence point. That's why he has to run around. That's the whole problem. I don't know. Somehow we should get into the system, and there should be a single source of information where the farmers can help us. That's where we, in fact, thought of having this Catch the Rain. We had the concept of a rain center. Basically, a rain center is one source point who will tell about the various structures to be constructed for the rainwater harvesting structures. Now, if that can be extended, that person is in charge of the water of that area. He can give advice on various water saving technologies, whether it is solar pump, whether it is better that micro irrigation part of it, and all these things. As from the water point of view, point is that everybody talks up from their point of view, and nobody talks for the water.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok Kumar. Anyone else would like to add to this?
Mr. Amit Mittal, I think, has got 3-4 questions.
Yes.
So what I would like to only add to what Mr. Ashok Kumar ji has said. See, the point here is that there are more than 20 million pumps which are grid connected pumps. And they consume almost 100 to 110 megawatt of electricity. Now, if we address this scenario, most of these pumps are basically borewell pumps. And if you look at the groundwater survey reports, it says the usage of groundwater has gone up from 57% to 70% in the last 25 years. Now, this groundwater usage is basically due to the reason of availability of good borewell making technologies. And farmer wants the water in his own field, and then he may not be willing to share the water with his neighboring farmers. That's a sociological mindset which we have to live with it. So the waiting list, if you look at in just the state of Maharashtra alone, of farmer requiring a grid connection is 150,000 farmers waiting for connections, and some of them go back to as long as 7 to 8 years. So if you combine the waiting list of these farmers, I don't think they are going to get the new connection, a grid connected connection, maybe in the next whatever years. I don't want to sort of say negative about it. Hence, this solar pumping mission, or the KUSUM scheme, what you mentioned, of 27.5 lakh pumps is just a small step in the right direction, which this KUSUM scheme has to be I mean, the plan is to install these 27.5 lakhs pumps by 2022, maybe 2023. So we all have to work toward making these new technologies more efficient, reliable. They should be defect free. They should be digitally connected, and farmer productivity to boost. So it's easier said than done. I know the difficulties, but yet I think that's the only way I look forward to. Thank you.
Add one more point. You see, if you look at the Jyotigram Yojana of Gujarat,
Right.
see, everywhere the same problem was there. The motors were getting burned. The farmers were getting agitated. 1,200 crores was spent for making this feeder separation, and dedicated quality power was given to agriculture field. I think it is 2006 or something. And because of assured power, as many people were mentioning, you all mentioned that the farmers are all insecure about the availability of power. When assured power was given, when assured quality of power was given, then the water usage came down in Gujarat. And second, the efficiency of motors increased, because they used to have all sort of inefficient motors coming up, and these high quality motors are very, very sensitive to voltage fluctuations and all. So when we got good power, good quality of motor came. Good quality of motor increased the efficiency, and what Mr. Raghav was telling, their motor efficiency increased. I think probably it's all in a chain. Good quality power, good efficient motors, more efficient pumping, and less water use pulled out from the state, and more productivity. Probably it's something we have to work on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok Kumar. I have one question for Mr. Vishwanath. We are talking on the one side about technology and the access to technology for farmers, how to incentivize that. You spoke about, the need to incentivize the farmers in terms of, making wastewater, the treated wastewater, something of an attractive proposition for them. And we know that you spoke of not just use in cash crops, but food crops. Can you share your experience about how that change was brought about in the example that you quoted from Karnataka?
Well, one of the things we imagine is that farmers are merely recipients of technology or ideas or knowledge which flows from universities or from the outside world. Farmers are actually involved on a day-to-day basis for living and livelihood with their farms, and are terrifically innovative. What we need to, all the examples that I was showing you are all farmers not depending on subsidy. They invest on their own, they buy the drip irrigation system on their own, they strike a partnership with apartments, they pump untreated wastewater 22 kilometers. I know farmers who pump it 22 kilometers to use it in their field, right? So what we need is people to look out for these kind of innovative farmers, understand if there's any risk in this whole approach, and see how they can be helped to eliminate the risks. These farmers don't need any subsidy at all. They don't need any benefits from the state, right? They need knowledge. Yeah, and they need somebody who's handholding them on a regular basis. That kind of institutional support, unfortunately, is missing. And we need to create an ecosystem, like Mr. Ashok Kumar was rightly mentioning about these rain centers. These rain centers should become knowledge centers for not just rainwater, but groundwater, agriculture, wastewater, everything together, right? And they should reach out, like the field assistants, field agricultural officers of you reach out to the farmers and help understand it. And the other thing is that our policies should also be driven by our understanding from the ground. Usually it becomes supply side driven, right? Now, if we understand it right from the ground up, I think better policies can be crafted, which will help these farmers do what they're doing best much better, right? That's my feeling.
A related question here is about, how is the standard of the treated water being ensured for use in agriculture, because that's an important dimension. And the other dimension is around pricing, not just treated wastewater in agriculture, but in any other use. I think even in domestic or industrial use, how can the pricing be made more attractive vis-a-vis raw water? What are your thoughts around?
Yeah, you see here, here's how it is. When it's untreated wastewater, it's a waste. Nobody wants to touch it. It's pollution. The farmers are investing money in picking up this untreated wastewater and turning it into a resource, right? Then the scientists descend and start to point out flaws in the way the farmers are using this wastewater. The farmer did not ask for the wastewater to come to his river or to come to his lake. The city sent it. The farmer then started to use it. Then the researchers came and say, oh, this is the health risk, that is the health risk. There are simple methods, the sanitation safety plan of the World Health Organization. What does it say? The best thing to do is to grow non-consumable crops, flowers, mulberry, eucalyptus, acacia, right? If we just do that one step, we have de-risked the consumer from this whole wastewater scheme. It has nothing to do with the standards of treatment of wastewater. It has to do with on-farm intervention, right? The second thing to do is to grow crops which are not root-based, which are not greens, right? To grow crops like banana or papaya, which is distanced from the wastewater being applied. Third thing to do is to stop irrigation about 2 to 3 weeks before harvest, so that you create a time gap for the pathogens to die. Fourth thing to do is to wash these food products well with clean water, with potassium permanganate, then you can bring it in. Most cases, what we have found on the ground is that the risks are unnecessarily exaggerated. People don't have a clue on what actually the risks are. And even if there be heavy metal in some of these crops, you'll have to consume 2 tons of baby corn for you to get infected, right? So there are ways of blending crops and making sure that it falls below standards. And there's a very practical step-by-step approach till we get to the stage when India can afford to set up sewage treatment plants for all our cities and towns. We are going to do it, but it's going to take us 10 to 20 years, right? In the 10 to 20 years, what do? How do we strike partnership with farmers? Will determine how farmers have a livelihood and how the city gets rid of its wastewater scientifically.
Thank you very much. Maybe we have time for just 1 or 2 questions at the most. I will pick a question from here. I think one of the participants is asking about the role of MSP in water saving and cropping systems change. What could be the role of MSP? And then, yes, I think let's take up this question.
It is everything. It is everything. The whole thing revolves around MSP.
Yes.
So we need a political will to say that, okay, this is the what. So we had suggested in our Sahi Fasal campaigns when we did in the farm for the people, they were telling that we are actually interested in money. They are not interested in growing particular crops. Punjabi farmers do not have any great affinity for growing paddy because they don't eat anyway. They send it to FCI and FCI says and keeps it in the godown for the rats to eat. So that's what it happens generally. See, MSP, what we had suggested was if a conditional MSP is given or a differential MSP is given, if you are to announce for political reasons very high MSP of paddy, but say that if you are growing paddy in water stress area, your MSP will be half of that, something like that. Now, there are issues if they will cultivate here and transport it to somewhere else. That's they're all you got scheme to get over the system. But if we give say that there is a differential MSP where paddy is grown in areas like maybe Orissa or Ganga Basin and all, where there is sufficient water available, you give them higher MSP because we also need food security. But disincentivize farmers growing paddy in water stress areas by halving the MSP there. So that could, if we have a differential MSP, probably that can help.
Thank you. I think yes, please go ahead.
Just a mention on the solar pump use. We saw that unbridled expansion of bore wells and the supply of electricity actually depleted aquifers dramatically across Western India and Southern India. The only way that groundwater exploitation could be controlled was by electricity control, the 6 hours of reliable power that you mentioned, or other power mechanisms, right? Now with solar, we are going to unleash that control completely out. So we have to be very careful when we push for solar, that we understand the whole ecosystem of the use of water, the nexus rightly pointed out by the other speakers between water, food, and energy, and carefully calibrate our intentions. We should not leave the genie out of the bottle, and then it's impossible to come back, as we have seen with borewell and electricity links before. Yeah, for Mr. Raghav Agarwal and Mr. Dinesh Patidar, who I know are experts and who should consider this perspective also when they look at solar energy use.
Mr. Patidar, would you like to give your response?
Yes, this question is very good because in Kusum scheme component C, it is recommended to grid connected pumps. मतलब ये है कि बची हुई बिजली ऑटोमेटिकली ग्रिड में सप्लाई होगी और यही चीज इंसेंटिव देगी फार्मर्स को वाटर सेविंग के लिए, क्योंकि उसके पास मनी भी मिलेगी। अगर वो जितनी बिजली सेव करके ग्रिड को सप्लाई करेगा, पर यूनिट उसके पास पैसा आएगा, तो वो वेस्ट वाटर को जो वाटर का वेस्टेज नहीं होने देगा और उससे पावर की सेविंग होगी। तो हम लोग वाटर को भी सेव करेंगे, बिजली को भी सेव करेंगे, फार्मर की इनकम भी बढ़ाएंगे। हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर का जो ड्रीम है कि फार्मर की इनकम दुगनी करनी है, उसमें भी कुछ सपोर्ट कर पाएंगे और पर ड्रॉप मोर क्रॉप भी ले पाएंगे। तो इट इज वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन।
See, I would not say more crop per crop. I said more income per crop. Because we should now actually what happened. That's again the more wala culture aa gaya. More crop nahi hai, more income for the farmers. Because farmers will guys interested in income only. The second one point I would like to say, Mr. Vishwanath's question. One could be very rightly said if it is connected to the grid and the grid control it gives selling into the grid gives money to the farmers. Farmers will send actually more money by more power to the grid than actually doing for farming. So that's one thing which is happening in Gujarat. Anand Mem, that Spark project actually found that the usage of power has come down, water has come down, and farmers selling power to the grid has increased a lot. That's one point. Second, probably as they were telling, the mobile control phones. You should switch off with your remote control, and if they are drawing more water, maybe I don't know. I'm just even off and solution.
Yeah, Mr. Ashok Kumar, the future price of electricity and the purchasing power at which the farmer sells to the ESCOMs would be a key determinant. And energy price control, you know, is sometimes we get into surplus. But right now, India is generating actually surplus of energy. So therefore, the price per kilowatt for solar energy is dropping. These marginal differences starts to impact water. And do we believe कि इरादे नेक है पाटीदार साहब कि हम खाली ग्रिड कनेक्शन करेंगे सोलार में, पर एक बार जब फील्ड पे चला गया ना, तो ये हमारे हाथ पे नहीं रहता है। जो किसान अपनाता है वो अपने खुद का डिसीजन करता है। तो इसके बारे में जरा गंभीरता से सोच के हमें ठीक से करना चाहिए काम, बस यही मैं बता रहा हूँ।
Right, thank you for that interaction. I'm afraid we won't have time for any further questions, but I'm sure these will go into the FAQs as have the other questions from the previous webinars been done. May I now request Mr. Sunil Kumar Arora, advisor of the National Water Mission, to make his closing remarks. Mr. Arora, over to you.
Small sound test, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission, Shri G. Ashok Kumar, Chairman, FICCI Water Mission, Ms. Naina Lal Kidwai, representative of FICCI, distinguished speakers and my attendees, friends, a very, very good evening to all of you. On behalf of National Water Mission, Department of Water Resources and FICCI, I take this opportunity to extend my heartiest thanks to Additional Secretary and Mission Director for his wholeheartedly participation in all of the 4 sessions of the series of this webinar. Thank you, sir, for your interesting and thought-provoking addresses in every session. These addresses had set a perfect platform for the commencement of that session. I hope You all must have enjoyed all the sessions of this series of webinar and experiences shared by our distinguished speakers from different fields who have shared their views and experiences sitting far away. As we all know that one of the goals of National Water Mission is promotion of citizen and state action for water conservation, augmentation and preservation. This webinar series is also part of that goal. क्योंकि जल जीवन का है अनमोल रतन, इसे बचाने का करो जतन. National Water Mission has launched a campaign, Catch the Rain Where It Falls, When It Falls, in February itself on pan-India basis, much before the onset of monsoon, with the intention that the activities to be undertaken under this campaign must be completed well in time. We have sensitized central ministries, departments, Airport Authority, Railway Board, Army, Navy, Air Force, University Grant Commission, IITs, IIM, Central Armed Police Forces, Ordnance Factory Boards, and so many other organizations to create rainwater harvesting and artificial recharge structure and support National Water Mission in its campaign Catch the Rain Where It Falls, When It Falls. जिसे कहते हैं ना, घर का पानी घर में, खेत का पानी खेत में और गांव का पानी गांव में. States are requested to consider establishing a rainwater center in the lines of Tamil Nadu states in every district headquarter, and National Water Mission is taking a lead in this and coordinating with the state government in this regard. As Mr. Vishwanath was telling that initially we can start rainwater center for having the knowledge center, and knowledge center starting with water conservation. After 1 year we can go to other field also. There will be a knowledge center for that district in water field of water. A workshop on the Catch the Rain was also organized in March for sensitization of stakeholders concerned. A lot more workshops were planned, but due to COVID-19 pandemic, those could not be materialized. So in this direction, NWM has collaborated with FICCI with the intention of to take forward this campaign, as FICCI has well-established water division, which is actively working in water sector, keeping in view the fact that FICCI Water Mission and National Water Mission are aligned with the common objective of promoting water stewardship. The series of webinar was initiated with introduction to the Catch the Rain campaign in the first webinar, where we talked about the infrastructure preparedness, awareness generation, and about this campaign. Thereafter, in the second and third webinar, we took up the subject of groundwater recharge and the aquifer management, and then 3 R's of water conservation: reduce, reuse, and recycle respectively. And as we know that Mr. Amit Kumar Vittal also suggested one more R, the review of the policy of water rates and the water auditing. And today we had discussion on increasing water use efficiency in agriculture sector with the theme Sahi Fasal. During these webinars, as you know, that we witnessed some of the prominent personalities of water sector like Dr. Himanshu Kulkarni, ED, Dr. Dipankar Shah, former member, Central Groundwater Board, Professor A.K. Gosai, IIT Delhi, Ms. Sangeeta Takral, Head CSR and Sustainability, Diego India, Mr. Raghav Agarwal, Director, Rotomac, Shri S. Vishwanath, Advisor, Bioma Environmental Trust, and champions of water intensive industry. Today, my words are not enough to express my gratitude and sincere thanks to all our distinguished guest speakers to enlighten us about the water problem and its solution, and sharing their experiences and opinions with all of us, and making this workshop interesting as well as meaningful. Big salutes to all of you, sir. आप सब लोगों की उपस्थिति ने इस वेबिनार को 4 चांद लगा दिए थे. For the info of all, I can say that Catch the Rain campaign, which was initiated on the behest of Mission Director, National Water Mission, sir, has assumed much significance and has now assumed the proportion of a movement, in as much as Honorable Vice President of India in his recent message endorsed the Catch the Rain campaign of National Water Mission. He urged the citizen of the country to make water conservation a Jan Andolan like Swachh Bharat Mission. The Vice Chairman Niti Aayog and CEO Niti Aayog has also supported the NWM campaign and exhorted us to actively take part in this campaign. With this, I close my address and request everybody present here to support National Water Mission in our campaign Catch the Rain to the fullest, to take it to the every citizen of the country. I convey my sincere thanks to the entire team of FICCI for organizing such a nice webinar on this important topic of most precious item of our life, that is water. My heartfelt thanks go out to all of you attendees for joining the sessions and had a patient hearing to our speakers and make this event wonderful and successful. At last, I want to say, Jal to hai sona, ise kabhi nahi khona. Thanks to all of you again, including attendees, for making this webinar meaningful and eventful. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.